everyone, and welcome back to People Jew Want to Know podcast. Happy New Year! I want to hear all about how you've been celebrating and how your holiday season is going, especially since Hanukkah fell over the Christian holidays this year. So please hit me up on @PeopleJewWantToKnow on Instagram. I want to hear from you. I wanted to kick off the year on a positive and fun note, so this episode is for all of my musical theater and Broadway nerds because today I'm interviewing Ari Axelrod, singer, actor, performer, and among many other things, musical theater savant. The Jewish Week awarded Ari the prestigious 36 to Watch Award, recognizing him as one of the 36 most influential Jews in the United States. His multi-award-winning show, A Place for Us, a celebration of Jewish Broadway, has been performed to sold-out audiences around the world, including such historic venues as Westport Country Playhouse, Bay Street Theater, and Birdland Jazz Club. I'll also add that it won the Best Zoom Show Performed in Real Time award, which I find hilarious and unique. Ari's theatrical credits include Paper Mill Playhouse, North Shore Music Theater, Lexington Theater Company, NAMT, Shabbat on Broadway, and the York Theater Company. He received the 2022 Bistro Award for Best Theatrical Artistry in Song. Ari is the recipient of the Mabel Mercer Foundation's Julie Wilson Award. His critically acclaimed album, A Place for Us, a Celebration of Jewish Broadway, is available for purchase and on all streaming platforms. He dedicates it to his ancestors. Ari says, "My voice is your voice. L'chaim." In this episode, Ari and I discuss his background, his show, A Place for Us, and I get Ari's take on what it's like being a Jew in show business right now. I very much think that Ari is the loudest Zionist voice in musical theater currently, and it's very inspiring to listen to him explain why it's imperative that we speak up. I have so much respect for him because I know of many Jewish Broadway performers and artists who are simply too scared to say anything because they don't want to risk losing gigs. We listen and we do judge. What can I say? In this episode, you'll also have a chance to hear Ari sing a little something and even hear me sing a little something, but like in an ironic way, not seriously. Anyway, having met Ari and become friendly with him in New York City has been nothing short of a delight, and I'm so excited to introduce him to all of you. Please enjoy this episode. Hello, Ari. Welcome to People Jew Want to Know podcast. How are you today?
I'm fine.
I will take that fine. Listen.
I was trying to expand to like, what do I mean by fine? And there's nothing deeper. I'm actually just simply, I'm fine.
That's all we can ask for these days. It's the holiday season. It's cold, but I am excited to do this. And you bring a lot of warmth into the room, if I may.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyway, my first question for you is, tell us about yourself. What do you do and how did you get there?
Right. As you know, I am an actor. I'm a singer. I'm also a teacher and a director and Jewish activist. I do a lot of stage work, a lot of theater, musical theater, and also my own performance, solo performance work. Some might call it cabaret. I call it solo performance. I do that. How did I get there? Well, growing up, my brother was an actor and I was a drummer and I loved sports, and I started a catering business when I was in the first grade called the Olive Branch, where I would deliver chocolate cake with chocolate frosting in used pizza boxes to my classmates. So I love to cook. And I just noticed that my brother was getting all of this attention that I wasn't getting. And that did not sit well with me. And so I started doing theater, and then I fell in love with it. And then really when I was in high school, I kind of found my own way in. I felt very seen and held and supported by all of these cast albums and these voices of titans of the musical theater industry that kind of nourished my spirit in a way in times when I needed them. And then I auditioned for college and I went to college. And when I was there, I stumbled onto this thing called the St. Louis Cabaret Conference. And all of these people who had been filling the soundtrack of my childhood were now the people who were teaching me and became my mentors. And that experience came at a very important moment in my life, because just a month and a half before I attended the cabaret conference, I had 12-and-a-half-hour life-threatening brain surgery. I had this thing called a Chiari malformation, where essentially my brain was too big for my skull. You can write your own joke. But I was going paralyzed on the left side of my body. I had terrible vertigo. It was drastically changing the way that I was able to or not able to live my life. And to beat death, I mean, I really was like, oh, okay, on May 11, 2015, like a carton of milk, here, a potential expiration date. And there's a lot of things written about how to prepare for that kind of potential expiration date, but there is less written about how to live your life after that potential expiration date lives in the rearview mirror. And I really didn't know. I mean, yes, it was a month and a half, but I was really struggling with, okay, what now? What do I do now? I was supposed to do a summer stock production of Oklahoma in Montana as Allie Hackham. That would have been fun. But I canceled. I backed out because I was having brain surgery. And had I not had the brain surgery, I would not have been in St. Louis to do the cabaret conference. And doing the cabaret conference really gave my life a sense of purpose and a sense of direction at a time where I was floundering and I didn't know how to live. I was really just surviving, and it gave me the fuel and the direction and the opportunity to go from surviving to living, which is a verb. And I now knew what to do to live my life as a person with a clean bill of health. And then I moved to New York after I graduated and hit the ground running. And I've been here for 8 years, and it's been a good ride.
Wow, Ari, what an intro. I'm just glad you're feeling better, and I appreciate that you shared this with us today. It's really amazing, your evolution as a theater kid and how you were able to channel such a scary issue into your superpower. And it kind of reminds me, with Wicked coming out, there's been this resurgence of this concept of theater kids. What is a theater kid?
Oh my, okay, so a theater kid, did you watch Glee?
No.
Okay. For anyone listening who watched Glee, a theater kid is Rachel Berry. It is Leah Michelle in Glee. That is a theater kid kind of perfectly summed up. For those of you who haven't watched Glee, a theater kid is someone who the stereotype is extremely energetic, animated, overdramatic, kind of moves through life and adolescence specifically as if there was a spotlight always on them and everyone is watching, because why wouldn't they? It's the most fascinating thing. But also very group-oriented. The like ensemble nature of live theater kind of lends itself to theater people hanging out in groups, which is why there's like, there are the theater kids. It's never there's that theater person. It's and there are the theater kids. They travel in packs. That's what it was like for me growing up. I'm sure that with TikTok and Instagram, it's become something different or even just added elements. I want so desperately to tell you that I was not a theater kid. I cannot do that. I was. If you are a theater kid who is now pursuing it as a career, it becomes a job. It becomes a passion that we've turned into a job. Yes, it actually does become our entire lives in the way that we kind of made it when we were kids, but with a little more maturity and understanding about why we do what we do and how we go about doing it.
That tracks is what I'll say to that. It's a performance.
Yeah, right. Yes, everything.
Everything is a performance. When I look at your career, your resume, if you will, you've done a lot of roles, even though I consider you young. You've done a lot of roles of old Jewish men.
Boy, have I.
Which is hilarious to me, because knowing you, you have this very young, lighthearted persona, and yet the roles you play are old Jewish men. Talk to me about your career, how this ended up happening, and what this archetype means for you.
Sure. I have always felt older than I actually am, and I've always been told that I'm an old soul, whatever that means. But I've been told that I give off older vibes than other people my age. And my favorite thing to do when somebody asks me how old I am, my favorite thing to do is to just say, how old do you think I am? And they're almost never correct. I had things happen when I was younger that forced me to grow up really, really early on. I went through things that most people my age have never been through, and I got a lot of wisdom out of those experiences. As a person whose job it is to embody other people and tell other people's stories, I had gained something that made me not believable as a 22-year-old playing a 22-year-old, which is why for a good portion of my 20s, I didn't work because I read as too old to play younger and certainly too old to play my own age, but not old enough to play the roles that I have since grown into. Specifically playing Tevye, and this year playing Tevye, everyone would say, oh, but you're so young, you're baby Tevye. I'm like, yeah, well, Topol was 36 when they filmed the movie. He was the same decade of his life that I am in. I think there's something, about what it means to me is carrying on the legacy of the people who came before me, who built these roles and who carved a path for people like me and people who've come before me and will come after me to put our own stamp on it. I mean, that's really kind of all we can hope to do as actors, and to be able to do it is really just amazing, regardless of the age. Yeah.
I went to Eliza's book release party yesterday. This episode will have come out a lot later than this book party. The book is called Matchmaker, Matchmaker, and since that moment, it has been stuck in my head.
Yeah, I get it. They're earworms. The whole score of Fiddler is just, I mean, the amount of people who know songs from the show but don't recognize that they're from Fiddler. I had a Christian friend ask me to sing Sabbath Prayer at their wedding, their very decidedly non-Jewish wedding.
How does it go?
May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always shield you from shame. May you come to be in Israel a shining name. Very Chazanish sounding, right? And yet there I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the lone Jew, story of my life, singing this song from Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, it is cool how that show in particular, but many of the shows that were written by Jews have withstood the test of time and completely transcend even just the category of musical theater. It just lives in the zeitgeist of pop culture.
So when I was like 11, this was my second year living in America as a Jewish refugee from Ukraine. And my school had a casting of a Fiddler on the Roof that they were doing. We were going to do a school production of Fiddler on the Roof, or maybe it was 7th grade and I was like 12 or 13. Considering I was a child performer in Ukraine, I was like, that's my shit. I'm going to show up. Okay. And so the song that they had the girls sing to audition, which I feel like was a poor choice, was Sunrise, Sunset. I don't think it shows range. It does it? Wait, hold on. Am I wrong?
Really? No.
No. Okay. Yeah, it's 4 chords. It's also an ensemble song, so it does not show individual vocal range. Now I feel like a smart ass, but I think I'm right on this. And imagine just like an 11-year-old, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. Over and over and over for like 20 measures. That is what they used to evaluate talent. Then when the casting was done, I got cast as not like a lead character, but like someone in the ensemble. I didn't know that was like normal. But as a child pop star, I was so offended. I was like, the fuck?
Do you remember any of your lines?
I didn't join because I was like, I'm not joining this as an ensemble member. Yeah.
Do you regret it?
No. Some of us are just meant to be stars. What can I say?
Yeah, listen. Would you do Fiddler on the Roof now? Would you do it now?
Yes, and lucky for you, I already know how to sing Sunrise, Sunset.
Any star.
4 notes is what I got for you. And I want to come back to something you mentioned briefly, which is your solo work, which you paused when you said some may consider it cabaret, but you call it solo performance. I would love to know what the distinction is. But talk to me about your show, A Place for Us. What is it? How did it come about? I want to know everything.
Totally. I'll start with my distinction, my disdain for the word cabaret and my distinction between cabaret and solo performance. When I first did the St. Louis Cabaret Conference when I was in college, I had no idea what cabaret was. I thought it was, in my mind, I pictured Cher and Christina Aguilera because they're in burlesque together, which has nothing to do with cabaret. Nevertheless, That's the image that went into my mind. I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't own fishnets. I'm not going to own fishnets. But because I think when people hear cabaret, they think either like Joel Grey, Liza Minnelli, the musical, or like a cabaret can also mean a very risque club for people who, in a non-artistic sense. The history of cabaret and like the Weimar Republic is a totally different thing. But in terms of today, I say all of that to say that people not in the theater world come to the word cabaret already with a definition or an image in their mind about what it might be. And then people in the theater world come to the word cabaret with a totally different understanding that it actually is rooted in a lot of evidence that because it's a solo art form, so many times when people get up on stage to sing by themselves, I like to call them because I can cabarets, where they get up and they sing whatever they want because they can. To me, that is the absolute antithesis of what I learned cabaret to be from the people who introduced me to the real art form. I define cabaret as the art of being yourself on purpose with purpose. To further illustrate my definition of cabaret, I will share a story. It was the first time I ever did a show professionally was the December after I graduated from college. I went back to St. Louis and I did my debut cabaret, which is called Taking the Wheel. It was directed by Tony Award winner Faith Prince and music directed by multi-award winning music director Alex Ryback. Just absolutely brilliant. I was very lucky to work with them. And the show was really about the challenges that I had faced in college with anti-Semitism, but also with my brain surgery and choosing to live again. And the morning of my show, I'm back in my college town. I'd already moved to New York, but I'm back in my college town and I'm at my favorite restaurant, Southwest Diner, at the counter. And I ordered my favorite breakfast. It is still so good. I dream about this restaurant really on a monthly basis. Still, I ordered the breakfast burrito and the woman sitting next to me ordered the same very elaborate kind of secret menu breakfast burrito that I ordered. We got to talking and she said, what are you doing? What are you doing in St. Louis? And I told her about my show. And I said, you know what, if you're free tonight, I would love for you to come. I'll set aside 2 comp tickets under my name. Didn't think anything of it, but she comes to the show. And afterwards we talk. She comes up to me after the show, tears in her eyes. And I said, oh my God, you came. And she said, I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. And I said, I know. How could you have known? We met this morning. And she said, you don't understand. I was not supposed to be alive tonight. When we met at breakfast, I had just come from the hospital after yet another round of chemotherapy. I was going to go to my favorite restaurant, sit in my spot, order my favorite breakfast, and go home and just end it all. But in talking to you and hearing you tell your story about your show, something in me pushed me to come tonight. And I'm so glad that I did, because to see a young person stand up there and talk about overcoming adversity and choosing to live again, you've inspired me to keep fighting. A year and a half later, I got an email from her that she was in remission. I tell this story because, as it says in the Talmud, if you change one person's life, you've changed the world. And as performers, we never know who is in the audience. We never know the impact that we have on our audience members, on people. And it was just such a testament to what we do as artists, but in particular as solo performers, when we get up on stage as ourselves, on purpose, with purpose. To me, it is an inherently generous and generative art form. That when the spotlight hits the performer, our job is not to be a sponge and soak up the spotlight and leave the audience in the dark, but it's to hold up a mirror so that the spotlight hits us and then showers the audience with light. Because there's no fourth wall, because I'm not playing a character, I look people in the eye when I'm singing. I literally look at audience members in the eye and deliver a lyric to them. That, to me, is an act of cultivating empathy. So when I see people do Because I Can cabarets, it's the opposite. It's not for the audience. It's for the performer, which if I'm paying $80 and a 2-drink minimum, and then to be in that audience and feel like, well, fuck, I don't need to be here. Fuck this. It's terrible. For people in the theater who have seen a lot of those very self-focused cabarets, it has left a bad taste in people's mouths. They hear cabaret and they think, ugh, gotta go and sit and watch this person sing about themselves. And I got really tired of defending what cabaret actually was. I'm really tired of having to teach people from a place of undoing something they've already learned. So I just started calling it solo performance, where it is one person in a dimly lit room being themselves on purpose. The thing I think that separates solo performance from, musical theater is if I'm playing Tevye, the audience is watching Ari on stage. They're watching the actor, but they are seeing Tevye. They are getting to know and love Tevye. When I am on stage doing a solo show, the audience is watching Ari and they are seeing Ari and they are getting to know and learn me. And so for my solo show, A Place for Us, a Celebration of Jewish Broadway, it started, when I was in college, I was really the loudest, most outspoken Jewish person in my department, to a point where it actually became quite painful. Like, I would talk about my Jewish identity and people would roll their eyes and leave. Just being Jewish in that space was a constant battle. And I'm also a musical theater nerd. I would clear rooms if I just started talking about the intricacies of a Bill Finn score. People would be like, oh, God, enough, which I get. That was me in college. Ari, when you talk about Judaism or you talk about Broadway, people leave. You want to clear a room? Talk about those two things. So in 2018, Marty Schickman, who was at that time, I believe, the executive director of the Jewish Studies Department at Eastern Michigan, he had a group of students come to New York, and he asked me to speak to them about my life as a Jewish person, my life as an actor in New York. So I did that, and it was great. And then Marty and I got drinks afterwards, and he is a huge West Side Story fan. I am a huge, huge West Side Story fan. And so we're talking about Bernstein and we're talking about the score and whatever. And I'm highlighting moments where Judaism is present in the score of West Side Story because Bernstein. And Marty said, you should really do a show about, the Jewish influence on Broadway. And I burst out laughing. I said, Marty, no one would come to that. If I've learned anything, no one would come. And he said, well, I think people would come. So why don't we do this? Why don't you build the show? We'll bring you to Eastern Michigan and you'll do it there. So I built the show and I did it there. This was October 6th, 2018. And at that time, it really was just like a celebration of the Jewish influence on Broadway. It was 3 weeks before the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh. And people came up to me like, you should really consider doing this as a show. And the Birdland Theater had just opened. And I reached out to Jim Caruso and asked him, if I could book a different show of mine. And he said, well, you've already done it. Do you have anything else? And I said, I just actually last night did this show about Jews on Broadway. I doubt that you'd want that. And he said, how about January? So we did it in January of 2019. That was the New York debut. I did it 2 more times that year, in June and November, all at Birdland. In November, Tova Feldshuh was my guest performer. I did it a couple more times. And then COVID, and then throughout COVID, I just kept doing it because it was just me and my music director, and my music director was my roommate. So we could drive safely around the country and do performances outdoors in parking lots to masked audiences, which, when you're trying to make eye contact and cultivate empathy, and you have no idea if anything is landing because everyone's faces are covered. It was tricky and challenging, but it was amazing. I just kept doing it, and the show kept changing. But
you also did it on Zoom, right? For which you won an award, a modest little award for Best Zoom Show.
I did. We did it in June 2020 in my parents' basement in Michigan because my music director, Mike Stapleton, and I drove to Michigan, and we did it. And it was really amazing because there were people who could tune in from Israel and could tune in from London and South Africa and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And someone tuned in from their hospice bed and died a week later. It was the last performance they ever saw. Oops.
Oh my God. That's what sent them over to the other side. That's what did it.
There's a place for us. Oh. heaven. So I've done it for 6 years, but it's a completely different thing now. It's grown into more of a theater piece and less of a concert or cabaret. I mean, it really is a one-man musical.
Can I just say, I think what is so apparent to me, you talked about how solo performance is the audience experiencing you.
Yes.
But what makes a theater, like a play, different from solo performance is you are also experiencing them and reacting to it in real time. Whereas during a musical theater performance or just a regular play, you do not have that relationship to such a degree.
Correct. That is exactly right. I mean, the show, there's a reason they say that, once a show opens on Broadway, it's frozen. There are no changes to be made unless it's for safety. But the hope is that all of those changes will have already been made in the rehearsal and tech process. My show has never been frozen once. There are, complete songs that we've just cut. Many songs that we just don't do.
What'd you cut?
Oh, God. I mean, we used to open with Something's Coming, and I just turned to my music director, and I was like, I don't want to sing it anymore.
This is triggering. Yeah, after October 7th.
Right. I don't want to do it. Well, it has changed a lot since October 7th, which I'll talk about. We used to open with Miracle of Miracles from Fiddler on the Roof, which is an up-tempo, and it's very happy and joyful. And it's a great opening number for a show with the word celebration in the title. We did the show 2 weeks after October 7th. And I kept feeling like that was not an appropriate way to start a show, given everything that was going on in the world at that time and how raw everything was and still is. But in that moment, to go on stage as a Jewish person, as an outspoken and proud Zionist, and to start with wonder of wonders, miracle of miracles, it just felt like, are you reading the room? So I met with my music director and we found a way. We just start with Hatikva. And with a solo cello, and then we go into this Jason Robert Brown song called Hope, about a person who is struggling to find hope in the world, but that's what he has to do. And then we tie it back into Hatikva. And then I say, like, this show is a celebration, and there will be moments to celebrate, but in those moments, I don't want you to forget the grief that you're feeling. And there will be somber moments, and in those somber moments, I don't want you to forget or to stop striving for a reason to celebrate. Because that duality, holding two things at once, is at the core of who we are as Jews. Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim. This and this. Not this or this, but this and this. To quote Sondheim, is it always or is it never and, right? And so then at the start, I acknowledge what's here. And I invite everyone to bring what they're feeling along for the ride. So that way we can have complex connection. When I look at people, it's, yes, I'm singing a happy thing and I'm laughing, but I know that laughter is needed for you in this moment. I know that I need this laughter. It just is a way of bringing the context of the world right up to the forefront and not denying that it's there.
Does the show follow a particular plot? Like, is there? No?
Not really. As it is right now, the beginning, the first half is very much, did you know this thing? And listen to this cool thing. And I'm just let's examine these foundational pillars of Judaism. And here is how that relates to Broadway. So I'll say, what is Jewish Broadway? Why is Jewish Broadway a thing? And then I look at, elements of L'Ador Vador and multi-generational composing families. Then I talk about education and learning and studying. And I look at composers who influenced other composers and try and tie in very Jewish values directly to Broadway. And then I sing Bring Him Home in Hebrew, and I switch in the middle to Bring Them Home. And it is the first moment where the audience goes, oh, we're going there. We haven't gone there since the opening number. And then I say, we've talked about what Jewish Broadway is, why Jewish Broadway is, and I want to talk about why me. And I tell a story about my great-great-uncle who was an opera singer in Kiev, and during the Second World War, he was in the middle of a performance, and the Nazis entered the opera company, and they stopped the show and separated. All Jewish members stand in a single file line over here, and all non-Jewish members stand in a single file line over here, and they murdered all of the Jews by firing squad.
Including your uncle?
Including my great-great-uncle. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so I say, because I've been looking at the audience the whole time as me, I say, I used to think that the only thing that separated my great-great-uncle and me was about 80 years in geographical luck. I don't know if that's true anymore. The last thing my great-great-uncle saw was an audience of people looking back at him as he sang. It is exactly what I see as I look out at all of you right now. Every time I open my mouth to sing, I sing for all of the notes he never got to sing. When I sing, my voice is his voice. And then suddenly it becomes more than just, I'm a person who loves Broadway and Judaism, and I'm just going to nerd out about it. And it becomes a very real, very personal love letter to my ancestors. It's become a call to action, which is wild, because when I started doing it 6 years ago, I never would have thought that this benign celebration for a university in Michigan would grow to become a living, breathing form of activism, and also something that has really kept me going through the darkest year of, modern Jewish history.
I also think it forced you to step up in a big way as a performer, because you have to bring out your soul every time you get up there to do that, because it's not prepared. When you do something over and over again, you kind of black out and you do it. It's like muscle memory, right? But when you're improvising a vulnerable part of the show on the spot based on the vibes, you're really going to have to, it's like a feet don't fail me now kind of moment, because you don't know how you will react. You don't know how the audience will react. There are a lot of factors that you have to assess in order to deliver correctly in that room at that time. So I think it's your evolution as an artist, if nothing else, too. So kudos to you. And you joke about this when you talk about your time in college, and you'll joke about it now, that you're the loudest Zionist voice in musical theater. And I think it's true, right? Yeah. And to me, it's a very positive thing. And at the same time, a lot of artists, even Jewish artists and performers, are complete mutes about what's happening, because they're scared that they're not going to get gigs, they're not going to get jobs, that they can't work in the industry. What do you have to say to them?
I get it. And some tough love, wake up and show up. Our careers are precious, as any career should be in any industry. And we understand the fear of never working again. And for some people, that literally means the difference of health insurance or not, or having money to put food on the table for your family. And I totally get it. At the same time, if being a loud Zionist, if being a loud Jew would keep you from working, then we as a theater industry and as artists have bigger fish to fry than you not working again. Like, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. I understand why they're scared. I understand why they're scared. And I was going to say, like, just wake up. There's no excuse. And then I'm sitting here and in real time, I'm like, but there are people who they actually need to work because they might be chronically ill and they need health insurance. And yet at the same time, I'm like, but there are still hostages in Gaza. What the fuck? How are you showing up to work 8 shows a week and not saying, and how can you fall asleep at night knowing that there are members of our global community who have not seen their parents or have not seen their children in almost 430 days, and you're being silent? Like, I get it, but I don't get it.
It's because it's not their kids and not their relatives and not their friends that are sitting hostage, because if it were them, they would not be silent. And that's the thing. It's an inability to take perspective. It's hard to look someone in the face who needs work and say, you should have spoken up about this. It seems like a privileged thing to do, to say, I'm willing to lose my work over this issue.
Right.
And at the same time, you have to go to bed with your own conscience, not me. It's on your conscience, not mine. And if you can go to sleep knowing that you were indifferent over a group of people that you belong in, you're going to have to live with yourself, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop.
No, you're absolutely right. And I often think back to, okay, if I was a Jew living in the United States between the years of 1939 to 1945, and let's say we had even the smallest idea of the scale of what was going on at that time. And I chose to be quiet because I didn't want to lose work. That is not an option. That's not an option. It's not an option.
But think about the Holocaust. Like, before the Holocaust was in full force and all the Jews were getting sent somewhere, there were individual stories of people that were sent to labor camps, people that were imprisoned, and they would come back and they would sound the alarm like, y'all, these Germans, something is brewing. And all the Jews in Europe were like, no, they're the Germans. They're such a civilized society. What are you talking about?
We're Germans. We're Germans.
Right.
Just as much as they are.
So many times in history, most of the Jewish people have made the wrong call about what like, we look at the times of Moses when most Jews refused to leave slavery. We look at the Holocaust when many Jews refused to believe that something was happening. And we look at a time in history now when many Jews refuse to face the reality of what is happening in the world and want to act indifferent about the anti-Semitism that will one day come for them. So the numbers thing is not a valid, it doesn't make something untrue. Just because a lot of people refuse to see it for what it is doesn't mean it's not true.
That's exactly right. There's this great image. It's a cartoon of 10,000 people all chanting anti-Israel stuff and one person turning around facing them and yes, you're all still wrong. Even though it's one person in the face of 10,000, it doesn't matter. Those 10,000 people are still on the wrong side of history if they are choosing to be pro-Hamas. If history is our guide, and history must always be our guide, if we, as Jews, in moments of intense suffering, remained silent, we would not be here. And, one of the things I talk about in the show and just in life is, in Fiddler on the Roof, there's a song, to life, l'chaim, 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 to life. We say it all the time. And I was raised with the belief that Jewish resilience was the most beautiful thing in the world. And I no longer believe that that's true. I'm much more interested in Jewish vitality because resilience connects us to the thing that we are forced to be resilient from. It tethers us to the past. Whereas vitality allows us to live in the present with an intention for the future that we wish to see. It's there in plain sight. When we say l'chaim, we're saying to life. We're not saying to resilience. We're not saying to survival. We're saying to life. And to live is an actionable choice that we get to make every single day. And I'll be damned if my ancestors who burned in the concentration camps died for me to be alive right now and not use my voice, or for my relatives and the relatives of other Jews to have survived only to look around at the next generation of Jews who are not actively living, who are not actively out there loud and proud and outspoken of what it means to be a Jew, even if and when the rest of the world tells us that we should A, be silent, and B, go away. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live my life based on the rules that anti-Semites and anti-Zionists set for me. Fuck that. Fuck that. So yeah, I might never work again. I'd rather live in a world where I am a loud and outspoken Jew and never work than live in a world where I am afraid of being a Jew and I have a successful career. Fuck that. Fuck that. That doesn't bring about any sort of change of any kind.
I agree with you completely, and I very much hold your viewpoint. And I'm going to get serious for a second and talk about a very difficult conversation I had with one of my very first guests on the podcast, who is a Jewish studies and theology professor in Japan. And my whole life, let's take Masada, for example. Masada is a perfect example of people who refused to shut up, refused to hide, and were very aggressive and were willing to fight for their survival, which is kind of like you and I in modern times, just not to that extreme.
Yeah.
And so my whole life, Masada and what happened on Masada was the most heroic, admirable story that I ever knew as a kid growing up about Jewish people. And when I had this guest on, she said something that completely shattered my view and said, Masada is a huge shame. And if every person thought like the Zealots, they would all be dead atop of the hill. The Jews that are alive are the Jews that survived. That's an interesting perspective. Where I disagree with her is I think it's a spectrum. You don't have to be a zealot or a pushover. You can be somewhere in between.
Of course.
And that's where the truth of it lies. That's how we move forward. We still speak up. We don't have to take it as far as the zealots.
Right.
But it was the first time I met a Jewish person who did not view what happened on Masada as an admirable, proud thing and viewed it as a shame. And that was like, it shattered my reality a little bit.
I still think that Masada was heroic.
Same, of course. And as a Ukrainian person who grew up in a society where people are willing to die than live under Russian Tsarist regime, it very much resonates with me.
I do think there's something to be said about, we are still here as a people because we are experts at surviving. But we now live in a time, or I guess up until, October 7th of last year, anti-Semitism was not as popular as it had been in other parts of the world in other periods in history. If it was much more covert, and, we could live our lives as Jewish people and not fear. Me growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, going to shul, I wasn't afraid that I would be attacked. My great-grandfather living in Odessa did not have that reality in the 1920s. So I recognize that we live in a very unique moment where Jews in this country specifically have, a lot of relative safety that might be going away, which is, one of the things Daryl Horn talks about in her book, that, the 80 years since the Holocaust, people think that was the norm. And then this rise of anti-Semitism is the exception to the rule. And she argues that the 80 years since the Holocaust is, in fact, the exception to the rule, and a world that tolerates and celebrates and justifies anti-Semitism is actually the norm. And I think October 7th kind of made the people who are like, I'm just Jewish. Like, I'm a bagel and lox Jew. I'm a Seinfelder. I don't keep kosher. I don't study the Torah. They woke up and realized, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what kind of Jew I am. The world will see me as a Jew. And that, why would we live our lives trying to, for the safety and the comfort of Goyim, when we could live our lives to honor our ancestors, right? We have an opportunity and had an opportunity to do more than just survive. That, yes, for a good portion of history, and if Masada was a shame, and the only reason that we're still here is because of the people who left and because of the people who survived. We lived for 80 years with the possibility of choosing to thrive. And I don't think that our generation understood that until October 7th, or understood it as fully. And now we see friends turning against us for things that were never an issue before. And we're faced with a really big question of, who do you want to be? What kind of Jew, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the one that stays on top of Masada and maybe your family line won't live, but oh my God, will they tell stories about you for thousands of years? Or do you want to be the Jew that survives? I don't know. That's not up to me to decide, but we have that choice now. And there are plenty of people in our history who did not have that choice. That choice was decided for them. I'm not going to let anyone decide that for me. Period.
Period. Sorry.
One more thing.
Yes.
I will never understand the pro-Hamas actors on Broadway, not Jews, but there are actors on Broadway who are pro-Hamas who are showing up to work at a theater with the name Gershwin, with the theater with the name Hirschfeld or Schubert. Like, these are institutions that were built by Jewish immigrants who left places where they didn't belong, and they came to a place where they didn't belong, and they said, fuck you, we're going to build a place where we belong. And now you get to work in this place that was built by Jews, and you are spitting anti-Semitic bullshit on the very institutions that are sustaining your fucking livelihood. Fuck you with your from the river to the sea bullshit, and then show up to work at the Gershwin Theater, named after George and Ira Gershwin, who were born George and Ira Gershwin from Russia. Fuck you. Pisses me off. Read the room, Karen.
Clowns. What can I say?
Yeah.
They're clowning. Anyway, I want to move us on to, before we hit the lightning round question I've prepared for you, I do have to ask the cheeky question of, are you willing to sing us a little something from your show, whatever speaks to you in this moment?
Sure. Of course. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
I am completely enchanted. It's like a Disney prince, you know?
Oh my God. No one has ever called me a Disney prince before. I'll take it.
It is a Disney. It's giving like a little Hercules. I don't know why.
I am on my way, written by Jews.
It's a great musical. Zero to hero.
Yeah.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And out of nowhere, completely impromptu. That says a lot. Okay, the lightning round question.
Shit.
We're there. The top 5 musicals of all time.
Okay, these are not necessarily the best, but they are my favorite. Les Mis, West Side Story, Fiddler on the Roof, Parade, and God, I don't know. I don't know. It's that last one that always...
Are there any that are like tied for the same 5th place?
Yeah, I mean, Cabaret, Sunday in the Park with George, the last 5 years, they're up there. They're all up.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Les Mis is your favorite musical of all time.
It's by no means the best, but it is 1,000% my favorite.
My favorite song from there is a song that everybody hates.
Master of the House.
Nope. Stars.
I love that song. Why do people hate that song?
I don't know. They just like gloss right through it. And I think it's so underrated and just sonically so advanced.
Out in the darkness. It's beautiful. Oh. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Okay.
But you know who was terrible at singing that?
Russell Crowe?
Yes. Lord, let me find him, that I may see him, there behind bars.
They cast a lot of people who have work to do on their sound. Mainly Hugh Jackman. Who am I?
Terrible. God. There's a great YouTube video of him singing Bring Him Home at half speed, and it's wild. It's God. It's bad. Really bad.
That movie still, though, fire. I love that movie. Anne Hathaway ate in that movie.
She did. But, you know, I will say, for the record, I think that this Wicked movie is arguably the best movie musical since the original West Side Story. Oh, my God. There's just no comparing, like, Russell Crowe singing to Cynthia Erivo singing. So, like, Russell Crowe, even though he sang live, who gives a shit? It's still Russell Crowe singing. Sorry. And it's Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, and they're amazing. But just the way that they were able to bring a show that was built for the medium of theater and bring it to a completely different medium on screen, and nothing was sacrificed. All of the things that make Wicked magical were still present in the movie, which is so fucking hard to do, and it's just so well done. So well done.
Yeah, it's excellent, and I just love musical theater in general. Now, as we wrap here, how can people connect with you on social media and learn more about your work?
Yes, follow me on Instagram, just at Ari Axelrod, and my website is www.ariaxelrod.com. And I have an album coming out and an album release show at 54 Below on January 18th. Hi! At 7 o'clock after Showbiz to Saturday. If you want to see live and in person what this thing is all about, come take a look. Come check it out.
I would love to be there.
Come.
That sounds like my dream.
I will make sure that there are comp tickets set aside for you.
If needed, I can offer a rendition, a Hugh Jackman cover from Liam Miz. Who am I?
You know what I think? I'd rather hear you sing Sunrise Sunset.
Oh, right.
As an 11-year-old. That's what I want.
And that's how you make a callback joke, folks. Okay, and I have one final question for you. It's one that I ask every single guest of the podcast. Who would you like to nominate for People Jew Want to Know?
Dara Horn. Dara Horn is a writer. She is a novelist. She is a scholar of Yiddish literature. She has written several books, but the book that I think she is most well known for among the Jewish community is her book, People Love Dead Jews. It completely changed my life. It shattered the reality that I had been living with and made me realize how much internalized anti-Semitism I have ingested over the years that's been hiding in plain sight, but then also gave a call to action for how we can be different and better. Yeah, I just think that she's excellent. I think she's excellent.
Thank you so much for that nomination, Ari. And it's been a real treat to have you on tonight. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People Jew Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at People Jew Want to Know.